Hello, Sarah. This is my reply to your question. As I mentioned, it's going to be a video response. You write in your video last month, in your video response last month, you mentioned that the goal of life is to realize yourself, to awaken to truth. So, what happens if we live our entire life and never attain this goal? What if, like most people, we never awaken? Do we reincarnate into another life in order to try again? And if so, would our current lifetime have been experienced in vain? After considering this idea, it occurred to me that this goal seems like yet another of many goals imposed on us by different belief systems and perspectives. Like other expectations, it puts pressure on us to do something that we may never achieve. Just as I may never marry, have children, or become professionally successful, I may also never awaken. What a sad consideration that I may, in fact, fail at everything that is proposed by different philosophies of life. How can the goal of life be something that I most likely will never achieve? Wouldn't that put me at a disadvantage and in a certainty of failure? If the goal of life is to awaken, and I never awaken, then what would have been the purpose of my life? This inquiry has brought me to consider that perhaps life has no purpose whatsoever, that we are not here to achieve anything at all, not even to enlighten. Thank you for your consideration. Appreciate your thoughts on the matter. Okay, Sarah. One could say that life has no purpose whatsoever. But before we even say whether life has a purpose or not, what is its purpose, the question is, what do we mean by life? What do you mean by life? What are you referring to? The sun is shining today. It's a beautiful day, trees in the yard and blue sky. There is breath. There is perceiving this perception. There is awareness, meaning consciousness. There are thoughts possibly arising right now. What do we refer to by life? So you need to contemplate this question. I would suggest that we usually refer to life as mind events. We refer to life as the weather, we refer to life as the body-mind, we refer to life as memories, as hopes, as mind events, perceptions, sensations, and mentations. But I would suggest to you that one of the biggest omission that we do when we refer to life is that we overlook consciousness. We overlook the reality of consciousness. So what is life? Is life the images that appear to you, the thoughts that appear to you, and then another thought arises, another thought arises, or a perception that arises to you, then another perception and another perception, or a bodily sensation that arises to you, the body keeps changing and changing? Or is life consciousness? Is life what changes, what's constantly changing? Like in your night dream, you have all sorts of dream images, mind events, dream events. Is the reality, or what you refer to as life in this metaphor, is life the dreams that are happening in your night sleep, in your night dreams, or is it you, the dreamer? By life, I would presume that if we reflect about it, that we refer to reality. And the reality is the reality of consciousness, the reality of the dreamer, not the reality of infinite dream images. So in the waking dream, the reality does not belong to the weather, does not belong to the body mind, to thoughts, to memories, to bodily sensation. It belongs to consciousness, because everything that you perceive through consciousness. So the question then is, does life, meaning does consciousness, have any purpose? And who would be asking this question? Who would be asking this question? That's a good question to ponder. If reality is consciousness, and if there is only one reality, then this question is a moot question. There is really no question. So you could say, okay, consciousness, meaning the reality, the one reality, the absolute, has no purpose or has a purpose. Its purpose could be, you could say anything. You could say its purpose is to dream these dreams. This purpose is to enjoy itself, to celebrate, to have fun, to be happy. And you may even say that its purpose is to be miserable. But I would rather say that the purpose of consciousness is joy. It's not really a purpose. I would say the nature of consciousness, the nature of reality is joy, happiness, beauty, love, freedom, intelligence, creativity, wisdom. Now, the first part of your question refers to the realization of the self, that the goal of life is to realize the self. And when you consider that we usually refer to life as the body-mind rather than consciousness, and that from that erroneous attribution of reality, in other words, by mistakenly attributing reality to the body-mind, we experience unhappiness, we experience mortality, we experience fear, anxiety, resistance, pursuits. We imagine that our happiness is in the world, and the world is constantly changing, so we experience a constantly changing happiness, which means happiness, unhappiness, happiness, unhappiness. From that perspective, from that identification, that mistaken attribution of reality to the world, body, mind, the purpose is happiness, meaning the purpose is to awaken. Awaken meaning to realize that you are attributing reality to what is impermanent, and you're overlooking the eternity and the permanence of the self, of consciousness. So awakening to the self only signifies to cease attributing reality to what is a dream like, what is constantly changing, and realize in an instant, in this very moment, the reality that belongs to consciousness, that it is consciousness that is real, and consciousness is universal, it's not contained, it's not limited, it's free and happy. In other words, the purpose of life is happiness. The goal of life is happiness. And we know happiness because we are happiness. We don't need to ask anybody to explain to us what happiness is. So you ask, what happens if we live our entire life and never attain this goal? Why? Why do you make it gold? It's really, it's what you already are. I mean, you don't need to complicate it. You don't need to imagine that it's something you're attaining in time, down further in the future. Simply notice that the reality that you are is consciousness. And that consciousness is freedom. Contemplate that the consciousness, meaning whatever it is that truly perceives right now, that truly hears these words right now, is not contained, has no beginning, no end. You've never experienced its birth or its death, its disappearance. What would experience the disappearance of consciousness? So it's not that complicated. The mind likes to complicate things and think, oh my God, this goal in the future, what happens if I never attain it? And this very thought is very scary. If so, would our current lifetime have been experienced in vain? You know, life is consciousness. There is no one that is experiencing consciousness. Consciousness is experiencing itself, is experiencing itself as everything, and is experiencing itself as consciousness. You know yourself to be conscious. That knowingness, nobody's teaching it to you. You know it directly because you are consciousness and you're aware that you're conscious. And also you're conscious of the world, of the body, of the mind. Once you realize that you're not mortal, in other words, that you are not the body-mind, that you are consciousness, then you can celebrate the dream. Enjoy the dream. Because whatever happens in your dream, you always wake up the dreamer, untouched by the dreams. That's your contemplation. And this is simple contemplation that basically dissolves the wrong beliefs, the mistaken beliefs that we've adopted without any evidence. We've sort of said, yeah, okay, we're the body-mind. While all along, we're not the body-mind, we are consciousness. You are the knowingness. You are that which perceives, which knows. You're not that which is perceived. You're not a mortal event. You are the eternity of consciousness. So just stay with that contemplation without postponing, without imagining some future goal that you have to achieve or fail at achieving. And oh my goodness, what will happen to me if I fail at achieving it? That's the mind. While presence is very simple. This very moment is beingness, simple beingness. There's a wholeness to that, to settle in that. There's a habitual tendency of the mind to identify me, body, mind. What's going to happen to me tomorrow, yesterday? Notice that these are just appearances to you. These thoughts, these bodily sensations are appearances to you. You are not an appearance. And nobody's imposing any goals on you. The belief systems and perspectives, these goals are imposed on us by different belief systems and perspectives. You don't have to believe any of these belief systems. Let them go. Just recognize yourself as consciousness, as presence. Like other expectations, it puts pressure on us to do something. Yes, all expectations put pressure on you to do something or to be somebody. But expectations are based on the belief that I am a person expecting something in time. In other words, expectations refer to you as a person and not to you as consciousness. So expectations relate to the dream character, to an appearance in your dreams, but not to you as consciousness. How can the goal of life be something that I most likely will never achieve? The goal of life is happiness, and happiness is our true nature. Happiness is revealed to us when we cease identifying ourselves with the mortal body-mind. It's so simple, but you've got to uproot this bad habit, the bad habit of thinking you're a woman that's born. That's an appearance to you. The body-mind is an appearance to you. And you are consciousness, freedom, happiness, and joy, love, beauty, peace. It's already so. You're already that. If the goal of life is to awaken and I never awaken, then what would have been the purpose of my life? What is this I that needs to awaken and that's worried about not awakening? Is it consciousness or is it the body-mind? The body-mind doesn't awaken. Body-mind is an organism. The body goes to sleep and wakes up in the morning. We all know that. That's not awakening. That's And consciousness doesn't need to awaken. Awaken to what? It's the only reality. Consciousness is the wholeness, is the one reality. It doesn't awaken or not awaken. All of that is mind stuff. Awakening, this term awakening that is used in the spiritual scriptures, only refers to realizing your mistaken identity, that you're identifying yourself with the mortal body-mind, and therefore the fear and the anxiety and the unhappiness and the seeking happiness in the world. Don't seek happiness in the world. Recognize the happiness of consciousness, the freedom of consciousness. Contemplate consciousness that you already are. To contemplate consciousness, you don't need to go anywhere. You're already consciousness, meaning the reality that perceives this perception right now. And remain as that. You are that reality. And that is not a phenomenal event. Consciousness is not an event in time and space. It's not an experience in time and space. Well, I hope this answers your question. And I will